Hey guys, I wanted to do a video on Brexit, and I did one which you can find on my channel once I've finished it, which I kind of ran out of memory for, and I wasn't really happy with. But I'm going to put it up there because it's got a few interesting points on there. But actually, most of the predictions I made, like Boris Johnson becoming the next Prime Minister and other bits and pieces, were woefully wrong. Although in my defense, I think had a bit of a curveball thrown at us with the whole thing. So I don't know if any of my predictions were that accurate, although some were actually. So it's worth a watch, but it finishes very abruptly because I ran out of memory. So this is kind of a redo of that video, but it's really because I have all of this extra information from the extra time that we've had since the referendum. It's obviously revised my opinion. So I mean, the video is called The 7 Stages of Brexit Grief, and I think as a nation collectively and probably as individuals, we're all going through our various different stages of grief. Some people, you've got to remember that the people on the Leave campaign, the ones who voted Leave, are not going through quite the same thing, although some of the psychologies are very similar, but it's not a mourning process that they're going through, whereas I think a lot of people on the Remain side are going through a mournful, morose process. And I think that we need to acknowledge that and understand that and try and, make it better. I should put my cards on the table. I am not really bothered one way or the other. I can see really good arguments for Remain and really good arguments for Leave. And the fact that we've left has not affected my view on that. I still think that Britain will be okay in the long term, I think, but we're in for a bit of a short-term shock, and that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. So the first stage of grief is shock. It is usually perpetrated with a sudden death, the shock aspect of grief. However, I would say that a lot of people on the Remain side, like a sick relative, secretly knew that this was coming, or at least had an inkling that that was a possibility. And so, a bit like when my grandfather passed away at a ripe old age, but because he'd had Alzheimer's for 3 or 4 years, that we had done our mourning, in advance, as it were. So when he died, it was almost a relief. And I'm not saying that that's quite a fair analogy, but I mean that if you know something is coming, then it's not necessarily quite as bad as if someone gets hit by a bus in the prime of their life. So I think that's kind of what we're going through collectively a little bit, and I think that's still resonating with us. But the second stage, I think the one that's the most interesting, and the one that blends into a couple of other things, is the denial stage, which I think collectively both Leave and Remain are in. I think we are all, it's almost like we're in a Cold War right now. We're in a, no one's pushed a button yet because we've got the new Prime Minister settling in, and she's obviously gone on a charm offensive all around Europe, like, hey Angela, hey President Hollande, bonjour, comment estás? She's been like, hey, I'm super cool, I love Europe, we love it, guys, hey, ciao, blah, 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 that's what she's kind of doing because she wants to go out there and, get a good deal for us. But I think there is this kind of collective denial. The pound did go down by quite a few points, and the FTSE went down. But, against where they were in February and January, they're actually higher now than they were back then. So it was sort of, in terms of long-term impact, short-term impact, it's always very hard to say these things. Oh, the FTSE crashed, like we're all sort of armchair experts. But if you look at the long-term trends for Britain, they are on the up and up. And in fairness to the Leave campaign, it was to be expected that there'd be an economic shock if we decided to go. But I think their argument will be that the deals that we can make outside the European Union, as well as the ones that we make inside the European Union, would be part of, would give us more, to deal with in the long term. Yeah, I feel like everyone's kind of in denial, and I feel like it's denial, and then of course another stage of grief is bargaining, and I think that denial and bargaining, they come together. No, it can't be, and then you start trying to make deals. Usually when somebody dies, you make deals with God, or if you find out that you're really sick, you start making deals with God about getting better. Those are the bargaining. That's the bargaining stage of grief, and bargaining like a second referendum, please. Bargaining, much like Nicola Sturgeon, is saying that in some weird place that Scotland could somehow operate inside the European Union, and the rest of Great Britain couldn't. Which is not a very realistic option. And to presume that 6 million people, of which only just over half voted to remain, could control the fate and destiny of the other 52 million other people in the Union is also a bit rich. So, I mean, what do you want me to say? It's a referendum. It's one man, one vote. It's a democratic process. So, and of course, there's a lot of people on the Leave side who would also argue that we need to just get on now. We don't need to be talking about second referendums. The most valid argument for the not triggering Article 50 is probably the sovereign parliament argument. That's the most valid argument, in that the parliament, which we elected, because the referendum is only advisory, it's not legally binding, the parliament we elected say essentially that we think that the British people have made a mistake. We don't think we can achieve what they wanted to do, and therefore, in a vote of MPs, in a Commons vote, we do not wish to enact Article 50. And at that point, we'd have a bit of a constitutional crisis, because obviously a lot of people would be saying, what's the point of a referendum? But the government also, in good conscience, has to do what is best for the country, for the protection of the people, its citizenry, for the economic well-being, for all of those things. It has to do that. So there is an argument somewhere that says that a sovereign parliament, does not have to enact the results of the referendum. I don't think that's a very realistic possibility either, but if it should all go, completely gaga and completely wrong, and the Europeans play hardball and they don't want to give us any kind of concessions, any kind of deals, anything, then at that point we might have to rethink our position, because we might very well be in a lot of trouble dealing with World Trade Organization rules all on our own in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. So, there is that argument that could be made. But again, that's part of the denial and bargaining stages of where we are. And a second referendum is not realistic. Scotland operating as a special protectorate is not very realistic, since they use the same currency as us. And presumably we would need to, work out how that's all going to go pretty soon too, because if they want to remain inside of Europe, one of the deals with being part of Europe is taking on the euro. And then we're talking about having a border between Scotland and England, which, is, again, not the end of the world. The problem is there's these, people on Facebook and people on the Huffington Post websites and people on Breitbart, these crazy right-wingers, they speak in these apocalyptic terms. I mean, what's happened is that Britain has left a free trade agreement which has been in for 42 years. That's really what's happened. And some of the articles of that free trade agreement were very beneficial to Great Britain. Some of them were not that beneficial to Great Britain. So, and on balance, we're not really ever going to know until 10 years down the line whether it was the right thing or the wrong thing to do. So in terms of bargaining, we also have to talk about bargaining with Europe and what we're going to do and how we're going to act and how we are going to be perceived as a country in the world. And one of the ways to be perceived pretty badly is to be a big crybaby about things and to create instability. And it might be a very good idea for us to start coming together and saying to our government, because again, as I said in my last video, this government is now our only government. They are the only ones that answer to us as the citizens of this great country. And they are the ones, so all of this crap that they tried to pull on us, the Leave campaigners, about how, it's the EU's fault that the NHS doesn't work, and it's the EU's fault that there's not enough houses, and it's the EU's fault that there's this and there's that, and all of this crap that they talk to us. I mean, like, if you bought all of that, you're stupid. I mean, I'm sorry, but that was just a dumb argument. But the reality is that now they don't have that anymore. So yeah, Theresa May, you know, when are we going to sort out the banks? When are we going to build 100,000 new houses a year just to even begin to get caught up on the housing crisis? When are we going to talk about rent control in London? When are we going to talk about, you know, this universal credit and what it's doing to affecting disabled people and working families? So we need to talk about all this kind of stuff and this blaming of the poor people, which all of us as progressives, and there are progressives in the Conservative Party, just as there are in the Labour Party, just as there are in the Liberal Party, it's about us as progressives to come together and get over this grief. Because it gives us an opportunity, because the one thing that is true about the leaving of the EU thing is it does give us our independence. It really does, in that sense that it's sink or swim, motherfucker. That's the kind of independence that it's giving us. So we really need to start swimming, because right now we're thrashing around in the water. We're like, oh, I don't know what's going on. You know, is that a life vest? Is this a boy over here? Is that a shark swimming up to kill us? Is Germany and France going to come in and laser us from a helicopter? I mean, what's going to happen? So right now we need to open up that life raft, sit in it for a minute, take a reading from the sun, you know, have a look around, see what supplies are like, how many tins of beans are there, how many flares do we have. And at that point, you know, in that kind of mode, then we can start making decisions. And that's very interesting because it brings us back to the stages of grief. You know, and one of the things, the sadness and the emotion that comes from grief allows your brain to do is to process things in quite an objective way. And that's how you're able to call for a coffin for your mum, or to, you know, arrange flowers for your grandma, or to, you know, even drag yourself to the church to see their body, is because your brain has moved into a mode where it is able to take a very emotional, very left-sided part of your brain, and it's able to push some of that away into your practical side of your brain, away from your imagination, away from your emotions, and into something that is useful, and you can start making decisions. And that's really what we need to do as a people. You know, one of the final stages of grief, unfortunately, and this is the bad news, is depression. Because once all of that is over, all you are left with is the memory of what you had. And we had it pretty good in Europe, guys. There's no denying it. You know, we were the second biggest economy. We had a seat at the table. We could do what we want. And now, if Juncker and May have their way, and they don't seem to like each other that much, and they seem to contradict each other every single day now, we're probably not going to have, you know, that great of a deal. Not in the short term. So yeah, there will be something to be depressed about, and we'll probably be in a recession and have a stagnant economy for a little while. You know, and London is going to lose some of its luster as one of the economic capitals of the world, but not too much. You see, this is the thing. It's the apocalyptic. You know, the vote did not say, would you like to remain inside the United Kingdom, or would you like to end civilization as we know it? That's not what it said. So people thinking that, probably barking up the wrong tree. But I think, you know, we need to react with calmness, and we need to react with dignity, and we need to, you know, be classy now. And it's great that Australia have approached us, and it's great that other countries have started to take notice that they can come to us and approach us and make deals. And it's a shame that America spurned our advances, you know, but I think that's just waiting for Hillary to be installed. I don't think, you know, Obama and his team are in a position to be negotiating trade deal with anyone, since they've only got a few months left in office. So yeah, you know, those are the 7 stages of Brexit grief that we've all been going through. You know, I don't think that, you know, we're going to be the same country that we were. Another aspect to the depression that you have to remember is going to be on the Leave side, because Leave people think a lot of Leave people think that we've not only left the European Union, that we've sawed the bottom of the country off, and we're going to get a giant punt, and we're just going to move the country away from Europe, build a wall a la Trump. In fact, we can call Trump, because once he's elected in America, you know, we'll do a deal. We'll say, do them both. Do the wall in Mexico, and then come and maybe do the Scotland wall. We'll redo Hadrian's Wall, And then we'll build one on the southeast coast as well, you know, barbed wire. Make sure that everybody's out, you know, including me, because I'm an immigrant. So they're going to round me up real soon. So anyway, look, I mean, I'm saying that I think that it's important that we recognize that it has been a big change. Of course it is. But I also want us all to recognize, more progressive people to recognize and to stop panicking and to realize that also we can do this and we've got this and we're a good country. And if we pull together and if we demand that our government changes for the better, because that's the other thing, you know, we're not tied on to all those jerks anymore, the Jon-Paul Gunkers of the world and all of those people. We're running the show again, so we need to hold our government to a higher standard. You know, we need to be that shining beacon on the hill. You know, to quote Ronald Reagan, my favorite actor. Yeah, we need to do that, and we need to, you know, we need to be the shining beacon on the hill. And you know, maybe one day they'll be asking us to come back. You know, maybe we can be the hot ex-girlfriend. You know, and be like, yeah, sure, maybe. You know, maybe. Oh, my life's great now. No. Me and Ron, we are just so good together. God, it's like you never existed, babe. That's what we want to be like. You know, we want to, but at the moment, we're kind of like, babe, I miss you. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. You know, you come home from the bar, there's 14 messages on your answering machine. Your voicemail's full. You've got 14 texts, and then the phone rings, you know, and you're like, oh, man, it can only be somebody's died or it's my ex. And then, you know, she's on the phone, she's crying, she's got lots of things to say. And that's kind of what Britain looks like right now. But we want to be like walking down Fifth Avenue, great bag, great jacket, great guy on our arm. Hey, and you know, just to stop and a meet and greet, like literally an in and out. Anyway, so that's what I hope we can become one day. Yeah, Britain, the Samantha Jones of Europe. That's a great dream. That's a European dream to aim for. So yeah. So yeah, thanks again for watching. Great to see you all again. Thank you for all the views and comments on my last video. And you know, as the channel gets bigger and better, we're going to be covering more topics. It is the 30th anniversary of my favorite, probably my favorite film of all time. So I'm going to try and squeeze a review of that movie in this weekend if I can, maybe early next week, although the 30th anniversary was last week. So I'll let you guess as to what the movie was. But yeah, I would really like to do that for you guys because, you know, it's just great. And I'd like to do it for me. Let's face facts. So yeah, thanks again for watching. Please subscribe here, maybe, or here. I don't know yet. Maybe when I flip the image, it'll be on either side. So either here or here. Comment. That's all the way down there. Not on my dick. Comment below. I want to know what you guys think. I want to know, you know, do you think that we've made the wrong choice? Do you think we've made the right choice? Are we doing the right thing? Are we mental? You know, what do we do? Where do we go from here? Is what I want to know from you guys. And if, you know, you disagree with me, then even better, because I want to hear your side and what you think. So yeah, please like, comment, subscribe, share. There'll be a competition at some point to win something terrible, no doubt. Maybe a date with me. I don't know, whoever, but we'll see. But yeah, please, we'll see you soon. Thanks, and yeah, take care.